News Alert on exclusive reporting from our Pentagon team that Iran has tested a ballistic missile over the last 24 hours. The timing of the launch and the type of weapon of particular significance.
Two U.S. officials tell us Iran secretly conducted a new ballistic missile test launch yesterday at a launch site outside Semnan, Iran, about 140 miles east of Tehran. I'm told the Khorramshahr medium-range missile traveled over 600 miles before exploding. It failed on the re-entry stage. It is the second test launch of this type of missile since July and is an apparent violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231 put in place following the nuclear agreement. This comes as Jordan's King Abdullah visited the Pentagon today for a meeting with Defense Secretary Jim Mattis and comes on the heels of President Trump signing 3 executive orders affecting the U.S. military. One, removing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and Director of National Intelligence from attending all National Security Council meetings except those pertinent to the military. A second order signed this weekend compels the Pentagon to come up with a draft plan to defeat ISIS in 30 days, including a review of current rules of engagement and whether they are too restrictive. On Friday, President Trump signed an executive order, a third executive order, increasing the size of the military.
I'm signing an executive action to begin a great rebuilding of the armed services of the United States, developing a plan for new planes, new ships, new resources, and new tools for our men and women in uniform, and I'm very proud to be doing that.
As President Donald Trump continues to be condemned across the world for his executive order halting immigration from 7 Muslim countries, Arab leaders in the Middle East whose countries weren't included in the ban are, for the most part, staying quiet. According to diplomats and experts, they see Trump as an ally against Iran and the Islamic extremists who threaten their own regimes. Jordan's King Abdullah arrived in Washington, D.C. Monday to meet with Vice President Mike Pence at the White House, following Trump's phone call Sunday with Arab monarchs King Salman of Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi's Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan.
Meantime, tonight, Democrats in Congress leading a protest against the ban at the Supreme Court at this hour, and it comes on the eve of what is President Trump's most high-stakes appointment, a new Supreme Court judge. ABC's Terry Moran covers the court. He's there tonight. And Terry, back to the ban, several challenges. Where does this stand? Is the president's immigration and travel ban legal?
Well, David, that question could well end up here at the Supreme Court where these protests took place. And an amazing development just a few minutes ago, the acting Attorney General of the United States, Sally Yates, she's an Obama appointee. She says she won't defend this executive order in court.
Not long ago, President Trump fired acting Attorney General Sally Yates. She was a holdover from the Obama administration, and she refused to enforce his new immigration order.
What's unprecedented here is that the Justice Department would refuse to defend a lawful federal order for political reasons. That is dangerous to our constitutional system.
Right.
When somebody sues the government of the United States for doing its duty, the Justice Department is defending the taxpayers of the United States and defending the Constitution of the United States. Refusing to do that is, again, it's a betrayal of the office, and it is unconscionable to do so. And as you well know, Tucker, during the Obama administration, order after order after order was issued that violated immigration law, that repealed immigration law, that pulled immigration law apart. And throughout all of that, the Obama Justice Department stood by and supported those unlawful actions. President Trump comes in and directs the agencies to follow the law as written and to protect the country, and the acting Attorney General and Obama appointee says, I'm not going to do it.
Rare move tonight, just 10 days after leaving office, escorting then-President-elect Donald Trump to the Capitol. Tonight, former President Obama weighing in.
The protesters fighting President Donald Trump's immigration ban just got an executive thumbs up from former President Barack Obama. Obama's spokesman said the former president is, quote, heartened by the level of engagement taking place around the country. The spokesman also said peaceful assembly is, quote, exactly what we expect to see when American values are at stake.
Your morning roast is brewing some political dissent. In response to President Donald Trump's recent executive order, Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz pledged to hire 1,000 refugees over the next 5 years. Starbucks does business in 75 countries, but Schultz said focus for refugee hires will start in the U.S. with people who have served as interpreters or support personnel for U.S. troops. In an open letter to employees, Schultz said, "We are living in an unprecedented time, one in which the promise of the American dream is being called into question." Schultz isn't the only CEO questioning Trump's executive order. CEOs from Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft criticized the measure. And Airbnb CEO pledged to give free housing to refugees. But Starbucks CEO is being credited with one of the strongest responses to the executive order so far.
European leaders are ganging up on President Trump as well. Tonight, harsh criticism is coming from world capitals all over the globe.
Earlier in the day, UK Foreign Minister Boris Johnson blasted the order.
That this is not an approach that this government would take.
This, as an online petition, had well over 1 million signees demanding Prime Minister Theresa May rescind an invitation to President Trump for a state visit to the UK. Her office declined. With some travelers in Europe heading to the U.S. being turned away at airports, French President Hollande branded the move a dead-end response to an unstable world. And German Chancellor Merkel, who allowed 1 million refugees into her country in 2015, had this to say.
The necessary fight against terrorism in no way justifies a suspicion against people of Muslim faith or with a certain origin.
A UN statement declared refugees should receive equal treatment and assistance. In the Mideast, among countries cited in the ban, the reaction was fierce.
It is illegal and inhumane and against human rights.
One of the named countries, Iran, went on to brand the order a gift to extremists, feeding propaganda. And it joined neighbor Iraq, also noted in the directive, in threatening reciprocity. The Iraqi parliament holding a non-binding vote to ban Americans, while other politicians back in Europe, which has been the target of terror involving refugees, had more to say. The UK's Nigel Farage backed the ban, saying Britain should also employ extreme vetting. And in Italy, the foreign minister said the European Union shouldn't judge President Trump's decree while it was busy building its own barriers.
Today, the White House said that most Americans agree with the immigration ban, and a respected poll from Quinnipiac University agrees. It was taken 3 weeks ago, and by a margin of 48 to 42%, American voters support suspending immigration from terror-prone regions, even if it means turning away refugees. 53% support requiring immigrants from Muslim countries to register with the government. Here's Dean Reynolds.
Trump supporters were on hand at Los Angeles International Airport this weekend, voicing their belief that the president's immigration order is sensible and overdue.
Keeping our country safe and lawful.
Vito Glazers is a Chicago internet entrepreneur who voted for the president.
What do you think of this executive order on immigration?
Well, I don't think it's perfect. I do think that it's a great step to creating much needed action in the right direction.
Mr. Trump's stand on immigration was important in winning Glazer's support. And while he's only one voice, polls say his views are representative of many fellow Trump supporters.
I don't want America to end up in a place where political correctness is being used against us to destroy us.
The Hungarian government isn't shying away from confronting EU leaders after Brussels stepped up regulations, imposed refugee quotas, and hurtful sanctions. For years, it has been a skeptical voice on European matters. But now, with America's new president promising to stay off the liberal course, will the ruling conservatives in Budapest be emboldened? Can the rise of alternative parties across Europe prop up Hungary's voice in the Union? And what kind of transformation can these new voices offer?
There are NGOs in the country which are financed by foreign citizens, by other countries, by other governments, horribile dictu, then it should be known to the people.
But who are these local groups? I mean, you must have some knowledge to be so worried and to want to close them down. Who do they represent? Because Soros says he will continue working with local groups despite government's opposition.
Well, actually, what we say is that they have to be transparent. People have to know that if there are NGOs which would like to influence their opinion, their approach, their understanding towards politics, then these people have to know whom these NGOs represent.
So
that's what we want to know.
The little groups that...
Well, actually, we do know that George Soros founds or finances a lot of organizations in Hungary. He has a very clear, attempt or a very clear interest, because he has already announced it and spoke about this very openly, that he would like this government to fail. He would like to kind of fire this government because he doesn't like our approach, doesn't like our policies. But I mean, it's not George Soros who have to make a decision what government leads Hungary, it's the Hungarian people. So actually we find it very anti-democratic if someone from abroad would like to influence Hungarian voters whom to vote for.
The anti-Trump protests we've been seeing are highlighting the deep division in the United States following the election. The rural communities and the working class were the ones who largely turned out for Donald Trump. Caleb Maupin asked people in Ohio, which was a key swing state for Trump, he asked them why they got behind the new U.S. leader.
After Trump won, chaos took hold in America's big cities. Windows got smashed and buildings were vandalized. But further away from Washington, D.C., like here in Wilmington, the buildings had already been crumbling for a long time.
It's not good. We don't have jobs. We need jobs.
Poverty's horrible. You know, business is lost. Like look at Airborne. And
when Airborne closed, thousands of people lost their jobs. So it affected a lot of businesses. I just think that we haven't had a voice for, a long time. So I'm excited about the president.
I feel like we have been forgotten. After DHL pulled out of Wilmington, our little town crashed. And, I feel like Trump is going to maybe better that. He came here twice.
The signs in the community and in the farmers' land and stuff, it was all Trump. Yeah, people would like to see a change.
When it comes to protesters, locals say they don't mind people speaking up, but they don't understand what all the fuss is about.
It's crazy. I mean, I think that, people don't get their way, and so they gotta act like children. And
I'm a little disgusted with these people. I don't get that. It's not going to change anything.
That is ridiculous to me. I mean, if they want to be heard, I think there's other ways that you can do that and not be violent.
They certainly don't see Trump the way mainstream media has portrayed him, as a racist xenophobe.
They're perpetuating the hate.
It's the media. I think that there's a lot that is coming from the opposite party. There's a lot bigger things that are going on in our country that we need to deal with and stop this.
I didn't like either one of them. I didn't want either one of them. I weighed, the two evils. I feel like Trump's going to do better for us.
I'm hoping he can do some of the things he said.
House Republicans were set on Monday to begin the process of terminating 5 Obama-era rules on corruption, environment, labor, and guns under the first real test of a law intended to keep regulations in check. Republicans showed urgency upon limiting what they consider overregulation, stifling economic growth, as they do on overhauling the tax code and dismantling Obama's Affordable Care Act, according to House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
First, it was drought, then came the rain and cold and death. The community of Minas Corral is desperate. Their precious alpacas are dying.
I had at least 100 alpacas. More than 30 have died. I don't know. How am I going to live?
Without water and food, thousands of alpacas in Peru have been dying since August. They still are, but now the little ones are most affected. The rain brought grass, but the adults are still weak and can't milk the newborns. Just hours after this baby alpaca died, its mother can't get away from it. Ricardo Lima says he lost 40 alpacas. Now he has these skins left to sell.
Nobody wants to buy this. It's worth nothing because the fiber is too short. I'm 76 years old. I can't go out to find another job.
Community leaders say most people here have lost 1/3 of their flocks.
The alpaca is a key component of the economy of thousands of families. The livelihoods of most of them depend solely on these animals.
I am so sad to see how families depend on this. My heart hurts, and I think the government must especially look at what's going on, because until now there is no support.
Picking up the pieces after the worst wildfires hit Chile in its recent history. Residents have joined in rescue attempts and also in trying to build a firewall to stop the flames from spreading.
Since Sunday morning, everybody has been scared of the fire, which began as nothing and suddenly got out of control.
But despite professional and amateur attempts to save people's homes, the raging forest flames have spread, affecting 500,000 hectares, even after almost 2 weeks of firefighting. The fast-spreading blazes have consumed entire towns, making thousands of people homeless, causing hundreds of injuries and even deaths. While forest fires are common during Chile's summer, the country's president, Michelle Bachelet, says it's not yet known why they started and that a deliberate intent cannot be ruled out. More than 43 people have so far been detained for suspicion of starting the blaze.
The conversation which took place on Saturday between Presidents Putin and Trump was good, I would say, in both political and personal aspects. The conversation displayed a mutual respect, an intention by leaders to talk without moralizing, based, and I would like to emphasize this especially, on national interests of each country.
Said the two leaders agreed to work together on areas where the interests of Russia and the U.S. coincide. The two also talked about their intentions to cooperate in fighting insurgents in Syria. Both presidents have previously said they would like to rebuild ties between their countries.
According to a statement by the Ukrainian military on Monday, 7 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed in the past 2 days after an offensive push by pro-Russian separatists. Both sides accuse the other of violating a 2-year-old ceasefire deal on a near-daily basis. However, the recent clashes coincide with U.S. President Donald Trump's call for improved relations with Moscow. Ukraine is anxious that international resolve to hold Russia to account may waver following the election of Trump, who has spoken of possibly lifting sanctions against Moscow. These sanctions were imposed as a result of Russia's alleged support of rebel separatists in Ukraine, as well as for its annexation of Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula. Since fighting first erupted between Ukrainian troops and rebels seeking independence from Kiev, nearly 10,000 people have been killed.
A heavy offensive launched by government forces in the southern Philippines leaves 15 militants dead and the leader of an ISIS-linked group critically injured. Military Chief of Staff Eduardo Año told reporters on Sunday, January 29th, that intelligence and intercepted communications suggest the leader of Abu Sayyaf, Isnilon Hapilon, also known as Abu Abdullah, is in need of immediate medical treatment. Philippine soldiers launched bombs and fired shells on Thursday in rebel-held zones in Lanao del Sur, the stronghold of another militant group known as MATA, which also pledges allegiance to ISIS. A $5 million bounty is on Hapilon for his role in the kidnapping of 17 Filipinos and 3 Americans 16 years ago. Hapilon is based in Basilan, but reportedly traveled to Lanao del Sur to establish an ISIS presence there and rally the cooperation of the MATA group.
Boy Scouts of America has begun accepting transgender people into its scouting programs. A spokeswoman said the group's more than century-old practice of determining eligibility by birth certificate was no longer sufficient amid varying state laws that interpret gender identity differently. The news comes 18 months after another historic shift, which saw the end of the Boy Scouts' decades-long ban on gay scout leaders. The spokeswoman also said while the organization offers programs for all kids, its Cub and Boy Scout programs are specifically for boys.
A new study claims to have the first observational evidence that the universe could be a hologram. The work by an international team focuses on irregularities detected in the universe after the Big Bang occurred. They argue that such discrepancies between Einstein's theory of gravity and quantum mechanics could be explained if the universe was, in fact, a hologram. One of the researchers, Kostas Skenderis, has explained the idea is similar to that of ordinary holograms, where a 3-dimensional image is encoded in a 2-dimensional surface, such as in the hologram on a credit card. However, this time, the entire universe is encoded. As such, the team's work could help to further a concept called quantum gravity, which helps to bridge the gap between the theory of gravity and quantum mechanics. The hypothesis that the universe could be a holographic entity was first introduced in the 1990s. Throughout the years, research has been done to advance the notion, including a mathematical explanation of how holography even works.
A suspected U.S. drone strike has taken out 2 al-Qaeda fighters in Yemen. That attack comes just a day after a larger special operations raid killed several dozen terrorists.
Hours before signing a presidential memorandum giving the Pentagon 30 days to come up with a new plan to defeat ISIS, President Donald Trump ordered members of the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to carry out a daring raid into the center of Yemen near the town of al-Baida, an al-Qaeda stronghold.
Tragically, during this raid, the life of a brave service member was taken and 4 were wounded. Our thoughts and our prayers are with the family of this fallen American hero, and we also pray for a speedy recovery and complete recovery of those service members who sustained injuries.
An MV-22 Osprey made a hard landing during the mission and had to be destroyed on the ground. 3 U.S. service members were injured during the crash, according to officials. The target, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. 14 militants were killed during the ensuing firefight, which Pentagon officials said included women combatants taking up armed positions. Unconfirmed reports from the region suggest among those killed the 8-year-old daughter of the radical Islamic cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, an American that the Obama administration killed 5 years ago in a drone strike. Al-Awlaki sent the underwear bomber to blow up a plane on Christmas Day in 2009. Sources tell Fox the SEALs managed to grab computer hard drives they hope may lead them to preventing future attacks. Republican Congressman Scott Taylor is a former Navy SEAL, recently elected from Virginia Beach.
I'm from that community, of course, and I remember, I think it was maybe 2009, 2010-ish, when I had families calling me and saying, hey, can you step up? Can you talk about this, because the rules of engagement are stopping folks from pulling the trigger. Basically, they have to make sure they're being shot upon first before they return fire.
The Pentagon has just released the name of the Navy SEAL killed in action this weekend, Chief Petty Officer William Ryan Owens. President Trump has asked the Pentagon to review the current rules of engagement and whether they have been too strict until now. Last weekend's raid suggests the rules have already been loosened by the Trump White House. The plan had been on the shelf awaiting approval since before Trump took over as commander-in-chief. One senior defense official told us this operation would not have been approved by the last White House.
Hey, come here.
They were sort of in the store trying to continue to sell. I looked at them a little bit, noticed they'd just gotten out of the rain. They were both soaking wet. I said to the older one, who's a very, very, very nice boy, I said, have you eaten tonight? It was kind of late when we got there. It was probably 9:30 at night, I think. He said, no, I haven't eaten yet.
And when I saw him take the kids up to the counter, I thought, I'm going to videotape this. Is because, you see all the negative stuff on TV, and I'm kind of tired of it.
I thought it was amazing. A 9-year-old boy is coming up to me and saying, you protect us, you take care of us. They inspired me as much as I may have made them feel good by just filling their bellies a little bit.